What else could we be forgetting?
Kevin!
So Home Alone, you watch it every year.
Not every year. I haven't watched it for a couple of years. But it was my favourite childhood Christmas film.
But it was Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, wasn't it?
I mean, I prefer the second one.
Yeah. No,
Even though the
I
stories
do
are
too.
essentially exactly the same, just in a different location.
Mm.
But we're now on the 33rd anniversary this year.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Because I was born in the year that the movie was released, like
Yeah.
1990, and you were born in just before that.
I was born about 10 months before it got released.
Mm. It's a cultural icon.
Yeah.
Everyone has watched it. Whenever I talk to children or parents or that kind of thing, they know the movie.
Yeah, even now.
And they love the movie. Why do you think it's remained so popular?
Well, the thing that got me into the film when I was probably about 7, I think I watched it,
Yeah.
was just the slapstick comedy element
Yeah.
of it,
Yeah.
which obviously appeals to the 7-year-old, 10-year-old, whatever. Ow. But then there are quite a lot of deeper, nuanced like points and symbols going on within the film, which I guess the whole good versus evil thing, and it just makes it very Christmassy.
Mm. I think the first question is, how does Home Alone connect with the theme of family?
The film sort of starts off with Kevin getting really annoyed at his family and hating them
Yeah.
because there's so many of them. He's not really getting the attention. He's getting told off for things he didn't do.
Kevin, get upstairs right now.
Why?
Kevin, you're such a disease.
Shut up.
Kevin, upstairs.
Say goodnight, Kevin.
Good night, Kevin.
That's how it starts. But as you go through the film, it's sort of, he comes to his own sort of realization as to how family is really important to him. It starts off with him obviously wishing his family would disappear and magically making them disappear, or so he thinks. And then he enjoys that initial freedom. And then as the story sort of develops more and more, he sort of realizes how much he needs those family ties.
I love that aspect to the film. So Kevin has this sort of magical, like the sort of imagination as a child that he's made his family disappear.
Yeah. I wonder if he actually believes that.
Yeah, no, like as in I really think he does. Because children have that sort of, they can take that magical leap.
I made my family disappear.
And so for the whole movie, he's not really, although at the beginning he's obviously annoyed, and then he starts to miss him nearer the end of the movie.
Yeah, when he realizes he needs help.
But really, he's like sort of protected and shielded by his own imagination, which I think is kind of a beautiful thing. But then you can see like even his older siblings start to get a bit worried about it. Like Megan starts to worry about him. Buzz not so much, but Megan.
I think he
definitely.
did. He just doesn't.
Yeah,
doesn't show it.
And I like that aspect too. So like it shows like the elder
brother
brother
and
the elder
sister
brother
brother.
kind of going, he'll be fine, like sort of putting a positive spin on it. And then the parents obviously like
Freaking out.
what's happening? The dad sort of calling people up, and the mother just sort of despairing that like the last things that they've all those regrets basically.
Yeah.
So I think it really hits on sort of the differences and the different age groups, and it sort of reflects characters within your own life. And that's one of the reasons why it resonates, because there's a character really for everyone in there.
Yeah. So if you're with your family at Christmas, there is that uncle, there is that that younger sibling, the kid with the glasses that pees in the bed after drinking loads of Pepsi.
Oh, yeah.
Fuller, go easy
There's
on
like
the Pepsi.
a character for every family member.
Also, I think, was it some time to reflect on the title is a good thing. So like the significance of the title. When I hear that title, so Home Alone, right? What's your immediate impression of that?
Horror film?
Yeah. Well,
Either a horror film or like, it could be either. It's kind of up to your own interpretation.
yeah. I don't immediately think comedy.
No.
I think that's a very somber title for for basically a comedy romp, essentially.
Yeah. Mm.
And I love that about it too, because it reflects something beyond just the slapstick, and it reflects something deeper in that so many people around the world, maybe people that you know and that kind of thing, they have a sense of being alone, even if they're surrounded by people around them. And that's also reflected in Kevin, because he feels sort of isolated from the family in some way. He feels like they're not really my family in a sense. I'm like this, but they're like this. So I think that's reflected in the title, but it's also sort of the deeper theme of, people being alone during Christmas, especially the elderly.
So this is where Marley?
Yeah.
Old Man Marley?
Yeah, that's where Old Man Marley comes in. But there's like this church scene. Kevin's in the church, and you can see all around him in the different pews, you see old people, so the elderly.
Sitting separately?
Yes, and they're all isolated, but together at the same time. So as in they're in the same place, but they're all isolated. At the time, maybe you're not really sort of thinking of it in a tragic way, and you're certainly not doing that when you're a child. Yeah. Maybe as you get older and you look into the symbolism within the film and that kind of thing, you see the isolation is more poignant, comes across more.
Yeah, I have to say, whenever I've watched it as a kid, or even up until now, really, I didn't really pick up on that.
Yeah, as a kid you can appreciate, and that's the other thing as well that makes it such a timeless movie, is that there's some meaningful element for everyone. Obviously at Christmas is a time where the family come together. And Kevin is sort of alone during this time. Obviously, like, they do come back eventually.
Spoiler.
Yeah, he's not left alone forever.
Not until the next film.
Kevin himself goes through an apotheosis or transformation.
Yeah.
In terms of his views on family. Like I said, he was sort of isolated, or feeling more isolated and alone at the beginning. And yet by the end of the movie, you can see that he's sort of buying into this idea of family completely. How do you see that development? How do you think that development sort of took place in his mind?
Initially, he was happy with his newfound freedom.
A lovely cheese pizza just for me.
We could have the pizza that he actually ordered and
jump on the bed
and have ice cream and watch films and whatever else.
What do you mean?
Guys, I'm eating junk and watching rubbish. You better come out and stop me.
But as things start to take a turn, he does realise how much he needs them. And when that does happen, I think he finds family in the community as a replacement for his family that aren't there. So neighbours, the church, Old Man Marley. So I think he replaces his family with that community.
So it's all about communism. Replacement of the family unit. There's something in it for everyone, basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I see it as like he sort of starts to also take on roles that he's
like
not
more paternal.
Yeah, exactly. So he actually comforts Old Man Marley a little bit, and he sort of takes a more mature, and you can see in the shopping scene like that's probably one of the best. That's a brilliant from like a certain symbolic in terms of the character growth. Like, it's absolutely brilliant bit because he goes to the cashier,
pulls out coupons like an old man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hold on, I got a coupon for that. It was in the paper this morning.
Or like a mother, in a sense, like taking on that role, and then he also. I love the bit where, the interactions with the cashiers comes across as so mature, and then the cashiers are obviously sort of looking on at that with sort of wonder, a little bit. Like, she's a little bit of confusion, like, why is this little kid doing it? But I think it's also respect.
I don't know. I think it's also like trying to protect him.
Yeah.
She's like, she asks where are your parents, and are you here alone? That sort of thing.
But I think she's also like there's an element of respect that sort of comes through in how she sort of acts.
Where's your mom? My mom's in the car. Where's your father? He's at work.
What about your brothers and your sisters?
I'm an only child.
Where do you live?
I can't tell you that.
Why not?
Because you're a stranger.
I'm like, yes, you see that sort of growth and independence, and obviously, like, he spends his time protecting the house, so he takes on that fatherly, protective role, as it were.
Yeah.
The paternal, you know.
Would you see that as him, in a way, sort of protecting his family?
Yeah, the protecting the home, but also himself, because it's one of the most, like, think about it, the most terrifying. It's potentially the most terrifying film. You could turn that into a real horror story.
Oh yeah.
Like imagine the sort of fear.
You just change the music. That's all you need to do.
Yeah.
That's how you make any film different. Just change the music.
And you have slightly more competent villains, basically.
Yeah.
They obviously. I like the fact that they actually do catch up to him in the end, but we'll get to that. But I love the bit where he's walking home. And you can see, like, he's got all the shopping.
Oh, the shopping bags, yeah.
But then they break. And I think for that represents, like, that's got some symbolic representation too. That he hasn't fully...
Figured it out.
Yeah, he hasn't, he's not ready. He hasn't fully matured to the point where he can fully take care of himself and that kind of thing. I think.
Or it's just a 90s thing that happened with paper bags that were just funny. Or we're just reading too much into it. Could be either.
Well, I think it can be both, can't it? Like, that's one of the weird things with sort of analysing anything. So you can go down. But
I feel like it was just a trope that happened quite a lot in like 90s films and TV.
Yeah.
But the bags just...
In my blog on this, so I do actually pick up on that and think it's symbolic. So, but you know, interpretations.
Yeah.
Things. Obviously, we undertook some research before.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit of research into this.
I've been researching for 30 years.
And you sort of focused on the idea of character development of Kevin. Yeah.
Well, I've had this idea. Like I said, I want to make a separate video on using this character development thing and analysing like 5 different characters. Yeah. And I thought, how well would it work with this film?
Yeah.
So there's a few different versions. You can have the character arc. You can have I can't remember what they're all called. But the one that I've gone by is the Dan Harmon story circle.
Tell us a bit more about that.
So Dan Harmon is the writer creator of Community, one of my favourite shows of all time, and Rick and Morty. And he has this 8-step story circle that essentially says would be it would work with any story. So if I go through these 8 points, we can maybe see how it works. So the first one is they are in a zone of comfort. So the character's in a zone of comfort.
So I suppose with Kevin that will certainly be the case. So
yeah, he doesn't realise it, but he's in a zone of comfort. Family, he's got food, drink, whatever else, safety, blah, blah. Okay, number 2. They're in a zone of comfort, but they want something.
Yeah, I think deep down he secretly desires a greater connection with his family, but he doesn't fully understand that. Yeah,
well, what he actually thinks that he wants is the freedom.
But then
freedom and space from the family. So number 3, they enter an unfamiliar situation.
Yeah.
So he's home alone.
Totally being isolated.
Number 4, they adapt to that situation.
Yeah.
Right. So we're now like halfway through the circle.
He does that really well.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty impressive.
So we're halfway through the circle. Number 5, they get what they want. So they get the freedom, they get the ice cream, pizza, whatever it was. Number 6, they pay a heavy price.
Do you think that's true? So what's the heavy price that he pays?
Well, the burglars like trying to steal from him and like kidnap him and...
But then it's not for his freedom, although it is from the situation being alone. I suppose that is sort of true.
Yeah.
But it kind of like I suppose because it's a family movie, it's a little less hard edged.
Yeah, well, I mean, the heavy
The
price that he's
price.
paid is he realizes how much he needs his family and whatever else, and that's the heavy price. Okay, number 7, they return to their familiar situation after the heavy price. Number 8, having changed to become a better person, character, whatever, and then they're back at the beginning.
Yeah, that probably is true for most characters in literature.
Yeah, you can apply this to pretty much every story.
I don't know about certainly not every story,
Yeah,
but
I would say
there are some where people really don't end up in a better place. But
it doesn't say better place. It says having changed.
yeah, or died.
Yeah,
in some
well, they've
cases.
changed.
Yeah.
But then what happens at that point is they're back at it's a circle, right? So they're back at the beginning again, and then they'll new journey, new price, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
That's beginning. They might be better, they might be worse, but they've changed.
So many things are cyclical in nature.
Oh yeah,
History. Well, some people actually believe that things, well, like for instance, history is not linear. Well, it's not circular. They actually think it's linear, so it's going towards something, an endpoint. But I strongly disagree.
No, I think it's circular. There's ancient civilizations that got wiped out and we started again from the beginning, So I would say I'd say everything is.
There's a famous paper by Francis Fukuyama, who wrote it a long time ago, and it was called The End of History, and it was like, I did it when I was studying economics, and he had the argument that we'd rest on liberal democracies, and that was the sort of end of history. Like there would be no further development. That was the ultimate result, as it were. But if you actually look at most of the non-Western world, it's really not like that. So you cannot take for granted the fact that we'll end up in a liberal democracy. It simply does not work like that. It could end up. It could easily go back to Nazism or something like that. Like you can't take for granted where we end up.
Sometimes think of it as like a pendulum. You swing too far one way,
Yeah.
nature corrects itself.
Yes. There's a counter movement.
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
But anyway,
That was a deep detour.
no. There's a number of sort of symbolic facets to the movie. The first one that as we were talking about it earlier, was the colour in Home Alone.
Yeah. So I watched behind the something, I can't remember what it's called. There's a Netflix series that takes you behind people's favourite films, and Home Alone was one of them. The set was actually made in a school sports hall. Inside the house was inside a school sports hall.
That's just crazy.
Yeah, it's mad.
Like you can't tell.
No, well they were going to cancel the whole project, and then I can't remember exactly what happened. Maybe it was like who's Marv's character. One of them like pulled out, and they didn't have enough funding, whatever else. And then basically the film got back on track, and they showed all this in this behind the scenes.
I need
episode.
to watch that.
They showed that in the behind the scenes thing. One of the things that they said is they weren't allowed to have any like blue or whatever in the house. Everything had to be red and green.
And what was their thought behind that?
Just make it as Christmassy as possible.
Yes. Simple. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's very straightforward, but yeah.
You think like there'd be, well, is blue not like a little bit of a? I think it's coming back. It's kind of strange because I think maybe that was true at the time, and now I'm noticing more blue and silvers. And
It's the other way around, I think. I think you're just thinking of our tree in the centre.
No, like
which is blue
I'm
and
talking to
silver.
kids and they're like, oh, we're doing a blue and. So I think it's coming into vogue.
It's the secular thing again, because everything used to be red and green tinsel, and then it switched over to silver and blue stuff. And I think about 5 years ago it switched to red and green again.
Fashions, yeah.
Yeah.
Someday it'll just be pink and maroon or something like that. Like,
Yeah, purple and yellow or something.
yeah.
But you had some ideas about other symbolic things in there.
I think the most interesting one is there's a movie that Kevin's watching called Angels with Filthy Souls. I think
Yeah.
it's called. And that was completely made for the movie.
Yeah, it's a completely made up film,
Probably.
but
Well, if they-
loosely based on.
Was that because they had like budgetary constraints or something like that, maybe?
Well,
Like,
I'm sure they probably
use-
couldn't show like. What's it based on? Is it like Scarface or something?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
So they probably couldn't use that film, so they made their own version of it.
Obviously, like, Kevin's watching it because he can watch whatever he wants.
Yeah, and I
Um,
assume because the timing of that scene where he pretends that he's shooting or whatever,
Mm.
you'd have to make it yourself to make that scene comedically actually work.
Where's a complete psychopath to the pizza guy? Like, basically.
1, 2, 10.
Yeah, Kevin is kind of psychopathic throughout the whole. Well, not all the film, but like sometimes at points.
Yeah.
Like some of the things that he does to the bandits. And, like, they did this thing where they were like counting the number of times that you could die or they could die, and he was like about 8 times across both like Home Alone 1 and 2. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Like,
you know, in you know the way they fall over in that cartoon sort of way.
yeah,
It's literally called the Home Alone fall.
She home alone to me.
Like they specifically did that slip and then landing on your back.
yeah,
for
and
that
you
film.
get so badly injured from like,
Well, the stunt doubles did that.
yeah.
It's all in that behind the scenes episode. They talk about all this stuff.
Yeah, they're kind of terrifying villains because they like the Wet Bandits because they're indestructible essentially. Like, they just keep coming.
Well,
Like-
I think it's more that they sort of treat them as cartoon characters rather than real people.
yeah, I do love that aspect to it. Just
It is back when like Looney Tunes and that sort of stuff was big as well.
yeah, there
So-
must be crossover. there.
Between the things that kids like to that age.
But with reference to Angels with Filthy Souls, I thought it was quite interesting because obviously when you see something in a movie, well, I don't know if it's obvious, but some people, when they see something in a movie, they go, okay, what's the significance of this moving forward? Does this connect to anything else in the movie? And I sort of think it's kind of strange that it's in there. So who do you relate it to? So who is the angel with the filthy soul? Or is it that it's trying to flip that idea? So we've talked briefly about, say, Old Man Marley, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's obviously this, at the start, he's more of a sinister character. Kind of the creepy neighbor.
See the garbage can full of salt? That's where he keeps his victims.
Look out!
But then he turns out to be the angel, as it were, that saves Kevin. So you've
Yeah.
got a Deus ex machina, like him coming to the rescue, sort of inserted in there. And yet, like, our original impression is that he's potentially a little strange. And all the scenes with him, like, he's presented as a bit strange until you sort of get to know the character.
Yeah.
Then you've got the criminals, so you've got the Wet Bandits, and I think that might be the closest relationship because originally I can't remember which one's the cop, so he comes in as the cop, which is super strange. Like, as in the cop,
Joe Pesci,
yeah. So he comes in and he's the cop. So
the golden
he's
tooth thing, wasn't it?
he's the angel, and then
he turns.
he
So they cross over, yeah.
He becomes the filthy soul, as it were.
Yeah.
In our minds. You got Kevin, who's just like, well, I don't know. Does he become more? He becomes less naive throughout the movie, I suppose, because he
becomes
gains a
less
sense
of a. What's the word? He becomes
A brat.
less of a brat.
Yes.
And then you have the rest of the family as well. So, like Buzz, for example,
Yeah.
was probably not a very nice person, but when he comes back round again,
Yeah.
there's all these like crossovers going on.
So I think it's interesting, but I mean, they might have just put it in with no thought as to maybe the symbolism behind it, but I just think it's kind of an interesting relationship there between that random movie just inserted in there and sort of the events that transpire and the different characters. Because you are if I watch it, I think I'm thinking about that.
I don't think many people are.
No, I don't think
I know
so,
that I
no.
didn't.
No. But because I obviously do more literature and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm always kind of thinking, well, what's the significance of this and how does that link to something else? But in it just puzzles me. So that particular relationship. The Bandits, the Wet Bandits. What do you think they stand for in the movie?
Well, if we link it to everything we've spoken about, they don't have any community or family that we know of. They're completely isolated.
That's true, yeah.
And it kind of shows you what could happen if you don't have all of that stuff.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah. And then they're trying to take possessions of money, whatever else. No, none of the work, basically. None of the moral compass that goes with it.
They're causing chaos as well, because I think there's this bit where, I can't remember which one, he turns on the taps. Like just
the second film or the first film?
He tries, can't remember.
Second one is where they steal from the charity shop, the kid's toy.
Yeah, like just causing chaos. Like,
What are you laughing at? You did it again, didn't you? You left the water running, didn't you?
they obviously represent this sort of evil idea of evil. And I like how it's pointed out to be kind of stupid. Like the idea of being like just causing problems for people. Like it seems it never pays for them.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the time they do it just not for the monetary gain, just because they want to, just for the sake of doing it.
They just represent this kind of chaos that, and obviously like potentially like our own fears. So the darkness that exists within everyone is just brought out fully within those two characters.
The Marv character reminds me of I don't know the name of the character, but in Pinocchio, there's two.
The fox.
The tall fox trying to lead them away from
the fox and the cat originally in, because if you actually read the original Pinocchio, the Carlo Collodi, not so much the Disney one, they sort of like make it a bit more friendly, but
still pretty dark.
Yeah,
it's still
no,
really
it is. That's why it's such a brilliant movie. It's got those sort of dark and light elements.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they really, really do. Maybe I don't know how inspired they are from there, but yeah, leading someone down a dark path. But there's less of that in this. It's more like they just want to. Their sense of fun is just causing pain for other people, essentially.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Well, I think the what's the other? There's Marv and
what's his name?
Harry.
Harry and Marv. Yeah.
So Harry wants the monetary stuff. That's what he showed with that gold tooth at the beginning.
His kids are still going to school here, and I guess he missed the whole family.
Checking all the lights and everything, like to what time they go off, when they can go steal stuff. And Marv's just there, like flooding the place for no reason, like turning the taps on and whatever else.
Yeah.
So I think, and there's like scenes in the ice skating rink where Marv's just like taking people's scarves for no reason, and so I think there's between the two of them, it shows both sides. One that's just for the chaos, and one that's for the money.
Would you like a scarf? We don't want goods. We need cash. And we need it now.
You've got a criminal, interesting criminal site. There's this thing about like criminal partnerships and how like two people, if you've got one who's very organized and systematic, and then one who's sort of chaotic and unhinged. Potentially you get a very dangerous combination, because they escalate each other in a sense.
Yeah.
And also they're harder to catch because you've got the more sort of pragmatic one who's a bit more logical. and plans things out more. Yeah, with
I never really thought about that till just now, actually.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I think that there's definitely an element where they've sort of played on that psychology of how criminals are. So they've done a little bit of thinking about it and research into sort of criminal dynamics, because you do tend to have that as a dynamic. You have a more structured person, and then you've got someone who's just like, I guess the chaotic one, or maybe the one who, like, for instance, you sometimes have prison breaks, right? And there's usually some guy who's tough, like the tough guy, and he just loves fighting and getting out. But you always have someone who's a deep planner and has the sort of tactical element, or has the sort of intelligence to be able to pull off a breakout. So I think they're quite interesting in that sense. Like, and maybe not many people think about the role of the bandits. And also I think they present something for Kevin, obviously something to overcome. He represents darkness that a child needs to at some point overcome, and it also shows how growth can come out through overcoming challenges.
The
And
cycle.
that darkness. Yeah, exactly. A character who I think has massive significance is Old Man Marley.
Yeah.
He doesn't appear that many times in the film, but he sort of pops up, and every single time he pops up, he sort of
Reveals more of his character.
more. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You've got the sort of don't judge a book by its cover sort of thing going on with him.
Yeah.
Like we were saying earlier, that sort of angels and with filthy souls thing, and we're trying to work out where he is on that spectrum. But I think overall, we've obviously got the fact that he becomes the eventual savior. It's like
he's a hidden angel that's
there. That danger does catch up with Kevin, and yet he swoops in and sort of shows, you know, his sort of maturity, and his strength in that moment as the hero, sort of the unlikely hero.
He's got his own sort of character journey as well.
Yeah.
Again, you could apply that 8-step circle to his character. Because at first you thought he was isolated, you thought he was alone, and you thought he was evil, sinister. And as he pops up more and more, you get to see more of his character. And Kevin sort of realises he's not evil. But then we spoke about the whole family thing, with Kevin being reunited with his family after, you know, a few days. Old Man Marley's family, who he hadn't spoken to for however many years, over something stupid, they got reunited because of Kevin.
Yeah.
So Kevin is his angel just as much as he's Kevin's angel.
And you've got that lovely scene at the end where he's reunited and like Kevin's waving
through
out
the window,
which is probably like, is one of the Kevin reuniting with his family is sort of emotional. But then I think actually that sort of wave out to Marley and the sort of genuine smile that you get from Kevin and that kind of thing is one of the most touching moments in the film.
Do you think that it's also, you know how we said about the wet bandits, like, oh, this is what you could be if you don't have all of this stuff, family connection, blah blah. I do not think that Kevin could have been Old Man Marley if he continued down the.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a sense in which Old Man Marley is a potential future
Kevin.
It's like and that's why you've got those sort of timelines and connections, and Old Man Marley, I think, is obviously inspired by the Christmas Carol's Marley character, not Bob Marley. Yeah, he's but it's very, very different, as in the relationship isn't as straightforward, because obviously the ghost of Marley is he's dead, so he's got no impetus to, or no possibility of changing, and his role is to actually change the character of Scrooge. But in this, you get the development. You get the development of both Kevin and old man Marley, who you think at any change can't make that sort of can't change much because he's old. But it shows that there's hope for anyone, so anyone can be redeemed. So I quite like the reference because they take it and then they sort of play around with it and flip it on its head. It's quite clever.
One person we haven't spoken about is the mother in this film. What are your thoughts on how she's portrayed? It's kind of a similar journey, just the other way.
Yeah. So I think at the start you could certainly criticize elements
for locking him in the attic. And
I know,
not giving him food. Maybe.
It obviously it was kind of a different time in a sense, like so that was a more of a common punishment, so isolation. Yeah. But it's one of the sort of cruelest when someone's already feeling isolated, a young child already feels isolated, like feels everything's against him, and then is sort of unjustly. I think there's a sense of like injustice in the whole thing at the start. But you can sort of understand Kevin's reaction to the whole thing, like why he's angry at his family, why he wants to let them sort of make them disappear. And at some point he's like, I think his mother says, get Santa to bring you a new family.
Everyone in this family hates me.
Then maybe you should ask Santa for a new family.
Which I think is quite it's like a trivializing and unfair way to deal with the situation.
Yeah.
Like
but she thinks that he's done all this stuff. That's the difference as well. She thinks that he is the cause of all of this chaos that's going on. Yeah.
And obviously like it shows again the importance of misunderstandings and communication. Because like most arguments, most misunderstandings, most issues do have usually an element of miscommunication or saying things that you don't want to, that you probably shouldn't say,
or probably don't mean.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting so we spoke about how the Wet Bandits would forego family, friends, blah blah blah, for just monetary material gain.
Or just fun. Chaotic fun.
But then as the film goes on, there's a point where Kevin says he prays for his family to come back. And he's like, I don't care about my presents, I don't care about any of this stuff, I want the family back. And on the other end, where the mum's trying to get a flight or whatever back to the house to find him, they're a very well-off family, you can see by the house. Yeah. She says things like, she says like, I'll give you my earrings, they're worth like however much to take somebody's seat on the plane. Yeah. And like she's willing to give up all of her money, everything that she's got in a monetary sense to get back to him, and he's willing to do the same thing.
Dale has offered us 2 first-class tickets if we go Friday, plus a ring, a watch, a pocket translator, $500,
and the earrings. You love the earrings. If it costs me everything I own, if I have to sell my soul to the devil himself, I am going to get home to my son.
And it's like reflected in the way the family as a whole are really not enjoying their holiday at all because of the worry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Even the kids, Buzz and all of the...
Yeah. And again, that sort of links back to the fact that, like, remember I said Kevin seems to be more or less okay with it at the start, sort of, because he's got that sort of magical imagination, and then the adults don't have that. They can't. They have to like completely rationalize everything and just go. They can't go, oh no, he's just disappeared, like, or something like that. They don't have that blanket, as it were, to protect them from the true reality of the situation. So the reality hits them very hard, and then as the sort of movie draws to a close, the family reunite. They come back together, and you've got forgiveness. You've just got like happiness.
Unconditional.
Yeah, happiness to see each other.
Yeah.
Unconditional love. I think well, especially as Christmas is sometimes a time where tensions can run high. But it's also important to reflect that on the fact that it's a special time where families can come together and actually get closer. You know, it's one of the few times in the year where everyone's together. We did this when we were talking about school holidays.
We did, yeah.
It shows, and it sort of provides a resonating message. They're sort of they're the people that you're sort of thrown together with from birth, as it were. You can't choose your family so much. As long as they show, you know, a modicum of unconditional love and that kind of thing, then you should make the effort. Even Buzz and Kevin sort of make up, and they're sort of the antagonists. So you've got that element of
but there is a point at the end where where things just return back to normal.
Yeah.
Where Buzz realises that he's trashed his room.
Yeah, the cyclical nature of things.
Mm-hmm.
And thus we have Home Alone 2.
Before we close off, we put a poll out last year, I think, on Instagram, of whether people preferred Home Alone 1 or Home Alone 2. Be interesting to see what you guys think. It was fairly unanimous from our poll. So yeah, Home Alone 1 or Home Alone 2.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
The Education Lounge Podcast.